my name is Dr. Heather Dartez, and this is another episode of Taking Flight. This is actually the first episode since I completed my doctorate and got married, so I have a whole new title and new name, which is super strange and hard to get used to, but here we are. But I'm really excited about this Taking Flight because the topic actually ties in a lot to the research that I did when I was working on my dissertation. So it's on women in business, and so I have an esteemed group of panelists with us, all really successful women in their own right that are doing really amazing things. So I'm going to go down the list here. First, we have Ambre Moton. She is the managing editor and producer for Lee Enterprises. She works with a lot of really amazing sports brands and is doing some really outstanding things. She's also an entertainment business master's graduate. We have Yanira Cardona, who is the CEO of YAYA Productions. She goes by YAYA, so I'm going to be calling her YAYA today. But she, I can't wait for her to tell you a little bit about what she's been working on because she's been doing some awesome stuff over in Jacksonville. She's a recording arts bachelor's graduate as well as a recording arts associate's graduate and a music business bachelor's graduate. And of course, we have our very own Monique Mason. Monique is a course director here at Full Sail University. She's been here for 20 years. She's basically a staple here. So all the students know who she is. She does a lot of really great events here at Full Sail and is usually the MC for those. So, you know, everybody knows and loves her. So I'm really excited to have her here on the panel today. So I'm going to start off by going down the list and asking each of you to tell us a little bit about your journey since Full Sail, even before Full Sail. I know because, you know, I'm sure, Ambre, you got your start probably a little before your master's, but can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing now and the journey that you took to get to where you are today, Ambre?
Sure. So as she mentioned, my name is Ambre Moton. I have a BA in cinema and television from SMU. I got that in '04 and then ended up getting my master's in entertainment business and Full Sail in 2010. I've spent the past 18 or 19 years mostly working in sports production. I started out at NBA Entertainment, where I also interned as an undergrad and then moved on to Fox Sports, ESPN, NBC Sports, and a couple other places in between. When I was at ESPN, I helped launch ESPNW, working on the video side of that. I've produced freelance lately for Just Women's Sports as well as Blue Wire podcasts. But my full-time job is working for a newspaper company, Lee Enterprises. I helped launch. I was in charge of HuskerExtra.com and BadgerExtra.com, which are two sports subscription websites that we're doing. And now I still work on those, but I also help produce video and audio for all of Lee's newspaper properties, but on the digital side. So they're really pushing digital first. And then in what little spare time I have, I'm also a head track coach at a girls' high school here in Omaha. And I also coach club track. So get to use a lot of those leadership and sports skills there too.
That is amazing. Very, very cool. I love that you do that, that you're also a coach. And so I think you're going to have some really relevant and cool advice for our audience today, which is really wonderful. Yanira, Miss YAYA, tell us a little bit about your experience and what you do. We don't hear any audio in here. Hold on one second.
Sorry, hello, now you guys can hear me.
There she is. Okay. I'm like, wait a minute, is it just me or? Go ahead, YAYA, start over.
My name is Yanira Cardona, known as YAYA, and the reason why I decided to go to Full Sail was because I've been working in, I started in radio. My career really started in radio when I was 17 years old. I had my own radio show in my senior year at the only Spanish AM radio station here in Jacksonville at that time. And my love for radio just kind of took off from there. And unfortunately, I got married at a young age and got separated at a young age. So when I got separated at 23 is when I decided to go to Full Sail University. I have my associates in recording arts and bachelor's in music business. And after Full Sail, I was able to get an internship at Universal Music Group Latino and as their public relations and marketing department. And then I actually got a job with a private public relations company. So I've worked with a lot of amazing Latin artists, Juan Gabriel, Romeo Santos, Ricardo Montaner, a whole bunch of famous artists, Grace, Elvis Crespo, all of the reggaeton artists. And after that, I decided to go back into radio. The radio blood still was in me, so I helped start 2 radio stations in Orlando, one of them being a bilingual radio station, the first ever bilingual radio station, and the other one being the first ever reggaeton radio station in Florida. Which we helped launch Bad Bunny's career here in the United States.
Wow.
I have a fun story about his video. My videographer was his director for the video. My girls are in the videos. Like his video, that first video was recorded in our studios. So it's a fun, it's fun to be able to see where his career is now. And then after that, I decided to come back to Jacksonville. I worked in radio in Jacksonville for a little bit, and in 2017, I decided to start my own company, YAYA Productions. I realized that there was something missing here in Jacksonville to create events specifically for the Hispanic community, but now it's way more than that. I create festivals for PGA Tour, for the City of Jacksonville, Florida Theater, Blue Zones, Jacksonville. So I have some amazing clients now. And I have the only Hispanic festival here in Jacksonville. And next year, I'll be having my own TV show on Telemundo Jacksonville. So
Wow.
we're really excited about the expansions here in Jax. So yeah, that's the better question is like, what don't I do in Jax?
Yeah. She's a jack of all trades. It's awesome.
And she sings and dances. She left that part out.
Yes. And she was a student of Miss Monique's as well.
Yes.
So, yeah. So 10 years ago, right? Yeah.
About that, yeah.
So Monique, tell us a little bit about your experience, because you have like a whole nother life and career outside of Full Sail. So share with our audience a little bit about your journey and what you've done in your career.
Well, like Yanira, my career started in broadcasting. I started in college radio, and then from college radio, I'm originally from Philadelphia. Go Eagles. So I got into radio right out of college. I started working at some radio stations in Philadelphia and really enjoyed that career, but I really wanted to be on air. So a friend of mine from Philly had already come to Orlando, and I came down here and started working for a station down here. Back then it was called 95.3 Party, which was a huge dance station. It was a blast. And so through that experience, I got involved in the music industry and then started to see the business side of the music industry. So broadcasting and music industry are 2 different things. And so from broadcasting, I then moved into the music industry and just started to learn some of the ins and outs of managing an artist and some of the business things that go on there. And because of my radio career here in Orlando, I then became a local promoter, throwing events with DJs, particularly in the house music scene. And then from there, and then I started teaching at Full Sail. And started doing some consulting. I've done some promotions and marketing with some other companies and things like that. So now, like Heather, I've gone back to school. I'm in the process of getting my master's in legal studies right now. And next year, I will officially kind of relaunch or officially launch my consulting business. So
Awesome. Congratulations. Very cool. So this whole panel today was put together because I really want us to have a great conversation about kind of the state of the industry as it relates to women in business. I did a ton of research on this topic because my dissertation was on the effectiveness of women's leadership initiatives. And so I wrote over 100 pages for my lit review, and it was all on the evolution of women in the workplace, the history of women in the workforce, which, for a long time they were stay-at-home moms. They didn't actually work. And so it's been really interesting to see some of the barriers that women have faced and this whole disparity in income. A lot of men make more money than women, and like, what are the reasons for that when women are just as capable? I don't know, right? So we've got a lot going on. I mean, we've seen a lot of really positive changes for women in history, and I think we're in the best place we've ever been, which is really exciting. But I would love to hear from you ladies about how you perceive the state of women within your industry, because the facts speak for themselves. I mean, less than 26% of leadership positions in business are held by women. And so it's interesting. Have you guys noticed that within your industry? Ambre, do you want to go first and talk a little bit about how you perceive women to be treated within your industry? Oh, we can't hear you.
Oh,
there we go. Now we hear you.
Okay. I think it's kind of tough because I feel like a lot of companies are making news, championing their hiring, their retention, their promotion of women, but especially in sports, but in journalism in general, it seems like it's a lot of the same people. You'll see them moving from one higher level position to another, or one that like an executive producer of a really cool event, going on, and then they'll be at another company a few years later doing it. And so it's been really interesting, especially the past for me, because I left NBC Sports and moved to Lee Enterprises to see a lot of women who are incredibly capable and had been, put at the forefront of their companies, lose jobs for layoffs. Journalism has a ton of layoffs lately, and not able to find something steady. And meanwhile, you see men who may not have had as much success get positions that they're going up against, and there's no real reason why. It's you lose out at the last minute, or we just preferred this person. And so, it's really tough in my industry, especially in sports, because women are still being questioned on their knowledge, their ability, their commitment. And it doesn't matter what your track record has been showing. They're still kind of playing on that surface level. So while journalism, I think, is in general kind of struggling right now, I think, women aren't necessarily, hasn't been moved as far along as a lot of the perception is, or as a lot of the headlines have come out. It's a push for DE&I and belonging. It's more of like a buzzword as to, showing actual numbers and progression.
Wow. Yeah. Interesting. I'm sure you especially see that in the sports industry. You probably have an even more challenging environment to be in just because it's so male dominated, How about you, YAYA? Tell us a little bit about, I know you work a lot in events. What's been your experience from what you've perceived?
Well, we have a lot of women working in events, but in radio, you don't see a lot of women that have their own leading shows, like even in the morning show. So I recently just retired from radio, 20 years. And so, and the last thing I did in radio was I had my own morning show on a reggaeton radio station. And I think there was only three women morning show on a commercial FM radio station in the whole United States. Wow. The rest are dominantly by men. You have, your Steve Harvey morning show. The Breakfast Club is run by DJ Envy. And so mainly your main shows are men. You don't really have like a lot of women even in radio on air like that. If you do, you see them midday a lot of times. On the weekend, you don't see them in that prime time, or you see them being that second lead, not being the first lead. So to be able to have my own morning show in the urban world, in an urban space, was like huge for me. And it just makes me realize, like, for sure, there needs to be more opportunities for us women, to open our voice and be like, hey, we could do this too. We don't have to be in the background all the time. We could be forefront. So I saw that a lot in the reggaeton world, in the radio world. As far as events, there are a lot of women that, we tend to be the event planners. We tend to be the event organizers. Where I have encountered sometimes is I have some clients that can be a little bit machismo, and it's like, well, this is how we should do it, and I'm like, well, hold on, you hired me for this, so let me be your expert. So but I do see it more in the radio industry, in the music industry. When I was a publicist for Peanut Records, I had an issue with a very well-known Hispanic producer who really doesn't respect women at all, and so that was like my first taste of, whoa, this is real in our industry.
Wow. How about you, Monique? Because I know you've worked also kind of in a similar realm with radio and stuff. But
yeah, I basically same thing Yanira said is it's a lot of misogyny is what you experience more than anything with radio. As far as the music industry is concerned, in my opinion, and based on what I'm seeing, I'm definitely seeing more women moving in executive roles. Slowly but surely, we're getting up that ladder to more leadership positions. A lot of them tend to be in marketing and promotions, but we do have some that are program directors or, slowly moving into CEO positions. You have your Sylvia Rones that are, everybody's kind of measure of where they're trying to get to. But when in the music industry, my main thing is females on the engineering side, on the technical side of the music industry. Women are dominating quite a bit as artists. That's a whole nother discussion as far as the pay and all that sort of goes. But women are dominating on a performance side, but on the technical side, we definitely are trying to steer more women in a direction of producing, engineering, mastering, these different roles on the technical side. And so that's becoming a challenge that we're seeing. Is we're just not seeing a lot of women. And there are, you have your Ann Maselli's out there. Shout out to Ann Maselli, running things for Alicia Keys. And she's definitely doing her part, I think, and Alicia Keys with She Is the Music. And there are other organizations out there, but we really need to see more women get into the engineering role. And I don't think a lot of people are giving women that opportunity because it's a technical position. And for whatever reason, they feel that we aren't capable of handling that. So that's the biggest thing that I'm seeing for sure.
Very interesting. Yeah, and we will talk some more a little bit about certain fields that tend to have more female versus men dominated, more men versus female. So there's a lot of opportunity for change there. To our live audience, if you guys have any questions, I know we have Tyler here in the studio with us. He's our director of social media, and he will be taking your questions today, and we will ask them at the very end. So feel free to type away if you have any questions. So through the research that I did, I found that a lot of times women face significant barriers, right? That kind of prevent them from advancing in their jobs or even wanting to have a job, right? And so this could be like family demands. It could be, work-life balance that might be an issue. It could be that they have a lack of self-confidence, or they have poor communication skills, or maybe they just don't know how to network and find the right connections in order to be successful in their industries. So what are some of the barriers that you on a personal level have faced? Are any of the things that I mentioned, or do you feel that there's any significant barrier that's maybe held you back, or do you feel that you've just been able to overcome every barrier? And I mean, obviously all of you guys are very successful, so maybe there have been no barriers. Monique, how about you? Have you had any barriers that have held you back?
So a couple things to that. Even with success, it is not necessarily that you didn't have any barriers. You just had to overcome that barrier. And a lot of time the barrier is yourself. I've had a couple situations where, returning to my original point, which was misogyny, you put women, or we as women want to be involved in these different industries. And it just, people around you, particularly the men in that space, want to turn it into something that it's not. And you're like, can you just respect me like you're respecting everybody else? Just because I'm a woman doesn't mean I want to date you. It doesn't mean I find you attractive. Like, I'm trying to get this work done and you want to flirt, and can we do our work? Like, that has been the biggest thing, is like, why do I have to pause the cause to explain to you what we're here to do? So for me, that has, in the past, I'm not seeing that right now for me personally, but that was something I had to kind of deal with in the past. And it was a challenge because a lot of women before me were experiencing it, but they weren't saying anything. And so I spoke up. And of course, everybody's behind, hey, but you're not there backing me up, more vocally. So now I'm taking all the hit. Now I'm being, singled out. So that's probably, in my past, that's been the biggest thing. But I would say, other than that, the barriers are usually self-inflicted barriers. Doubting yourself, lack of self-confidence, allowing external comments and things to get in and make you think you can't do something.
Yeah.
That's just been my experience. That's my opinion, is that it's usually self-inflicted barriers.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Like imposter syndrome. Like that
Oh,
is a
for
legit
sure.
thing. I mean, that's something that I've dealt with myself where, I'm like, do I deserve to be in this arena? Do I deserve to be here? And that's like all in my own head, right? It has nothing to do with anybody else putting a barrier in my way.
But notice that
so-
came when you got there.
Yeah.
I think that's what we forget, is you made it there. Of course you belong there.
Right.
You worked your butt off to get there. So I understand that the imposter syndrome at that point, but you absolutely deserve to be there.
Yeah, and everybody deserves to be there.
100%.
We had a leadership training session a couple months ago, and they interviewed one of our VPs here at Full Sail, and one of the guys in the audience said, "Do you ever, what do I do about suffering from imposter syndrome?" And he was like, "I still suffer from imposter syndrome." It's like it doesn't matter what level you get to. It's like you've got to be able to wrap your head around the fact that you deserve it. So, how about you, Amber? Any barriers that you can mention?
Yes, a lot of it is me, especially in sports. I mean, from my intern days when someone got my phone number off a call sheet and was texting me incessantly and following me around shoots. Yeah. And honestly, like I was just ignoring it. And then my fellow intern, a guy, was like, "Why aren't you just reporting it?" And it was like, "Oh yeah, duh. I can report this." So just kind of like being empowered by somebody else, and haven't had that problem since then. I now know to speak up for myself.
Good for you.
But there's also, stereotypes. I get a lot of people, mind you, I've been doing this since 2004. I get a lot of people who are shocked at my sports knowledge. Why? It's what I do. I was a 2-sport Division I athlete. I was raised by 2 Division I athletes. I love sports. I live sports. And you're shocked that coming in as a producer, I know what I'm talking about. I had one executive producer at a company that I worked for say he was going to give me weekly tests on all the division quarterbacks, starting quarterbacks. And I was the only female producer. There was also a female associate producer. All the other producers were guys. And I was like, "Okay, are they going to do it?" And he just kind of looked at me confused. I was like, "I will take that test every week as long as all the other producers are taking the test." Magically didn't have to take the test.
Good for you.
And, so it's things like that where, the stereotypes of girls not knowing sports. I also get people a lot of times assuming I'm stupid. I do not know where that comes from. I don't feel the need to walk into a room and announce my resume or all the people that I've worked with or all the things that I've done. And I think a lot of times, especially in sports media, while I do believe in advocating for yourself, people kind of take that to the extreme, want to one up. And then I guess the last is kind of the opposite of a lot of stereotypes for women, like you're going to get married and pregnant and you're not going to work all the hours and all that stuff. I'm not married. I don't have kids. I don't want kids. So I'm often expected to just do the work, like not take the holidays because Jane are going to go spend it with their kids, or because I don't have to put babies to sleep. I can work till 11, through my dinner, skip workouts, skip meals. And so, the shock that people like, "No, I do want some work-life balance. I have interests." That's been kind of tough with a lot of jobs. But meanwhile, I'll see, one of my counterparts at the same level getting a holiday off to be with his kids, being able to coach, even though my schedule wouldn't allow it. They'll adjust their schedule. So just kind of working through things like that. And luckily I've gotten to a point where I can do a lot of the things that I want to do, but it also gets exhausting having to fight all the time.
But I'm proud of you for fighting. Yeah, that's wonderful. Knowing how to stand up for yourself. That's great. How about you, YAYA? Any barriers that you would want to mention?
Yeah, I mean, kind of backing up to what Monique was saying, working in radio, in particularly the reggaeton radio station in Orlando, I was the only woman working for that company. Literally, it was an up and coming radio station. So it's only 6 of us employed, besides the radio jocks, but I was literally the only woman and I was the general manager. And then I'm working in the reggaeton world where, it's dominantly by men. It's a very sexualized world. And so, you know, I know I'm not ugly. I know I can present myself nice, and I know the kind of body that I have. So particularly this one case, I had a club owner who we had a Friday nights with him, and this club owner was always harping on the fact that I never would go to his club, blah 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 blah. So finally, for him to renew the contract with us, I had to go to the club. So I was like, okay, fine. So I went to the club, but it wasn't just the fact that I had to go to the club. He kept me there till 3 in the morning. And then when it was time to talk about the contract, he was like, yes, baby, whatever you want, love. Yes, honey. And it just really, at that point, it got under my skin. And I'm like, listen, and you know, and it's just, you have to know how to play the game too. You know what I mean? So I had to be like, listen, I am super flattered that you have treated me like an A-list celebrity tonight, but we're talking about business. If I was Gabriel, who was the owner of the radio station, would you be calling me baby right now? Would you be calling me love? Like, let's take this a little bit serious. You know, there's a time and place for everything. This is not the time to do this. So let's talk about business and let's get this over. And that alone, you could tell he was impressed by that, and he wanted to like kind of say something, but he gathered himself and was like, I thank you and I respect that. And yes, let's talk about business. And he quickly got himself together. So yeah, I've had that a lot in this industry where working in Miami, when I worked for UMG Latino and I worked for Peanut Records. Peanut Records is the record label that has all the reggaeton artists. And this was in 2013. At that time, one of the biggest reggaeton albums just came out. The song was Mayor Que Yo, so it had like all these amazing artists in it. It had Rakim and Ken Y on it. It had Arcángel on it, Plan B on it. All these amazing A-list reggaeton artists on it. And working with them was extremely hard. One of the producers, like I said, really didn't respect women. And one time we went to Sábado Gigante, which is a huge, it ended now, but it was a huge show that they used to air every Saturday on Univision. And it was a show that we all Hispanics have grown up with. And so we took the artists to this show. And particularly this show was not live. So Sábado Gigante was every Saturday, but 2 show out of the months was live, and the other 2 shows were pre-recorded. So this particular day was a pre-recorded show. So I remember I turned the CD into the audio guy with the sticker paper saying it's song number 3, because in Sábado Gigante they never allowed artists to sing live. It was always lip singing. And when they did the interview, Don Francisco did the interview with the artist, and then when there was time to play the song, the audio guy played the wrong song. So they had to redo the interview and redo it. It wasn't that big of a deal. Don Francisco and everybody was super nice. Everybody was cool. This producer screamed at me like he was my father in front of everybody behind the scenes in Univision. It was one of the most embarrassing things I've ever been through. My father has never even screamed at me like this. So to have a man talk to me like this, and I am Puerto Rican and I'm spicy, and I will stay quiet. So yeah, he heard from me, and needless to say, that was the last time that I worked with them. I value myself and I respect myself too much to continued working with somebody just to say that I'm working with these artists, or just to say I rather my peace and respect myself. So I quickly saw that this wasn't a good fit for myself. So I let go. I stopped working with that company. And actually the company I was working with let them go in general as a client because of how disrespectful this person was. So yeah, we've dealt with that in the music industry for sure. You feel that a lot, but you just have to know how to put them in the right place.
Oh, sounds like you navigated that situation quite well. I don't know that I would have been able to react in the same way. I mean, I think sometimes we're put in situations and we just don't know how that we're going to handle it until we're in that situation. So,
well, it's funny because I stayed quiet as much as I could, but it just gets to the point where like you kind of have to like, okay, now you got to defend yourself because now everybody in Univision is watching this go down. And so like I had to kind of like, of course, in a respectful way, because I'm not gonna
Sure.
go up to his level, but I did have to let it be known, like, no, you're crossing the line. This is disrespectful, and I will not
Yeah.
tolerate it.
And I'm sure that you earned some respect from your peers too by doing that.
Oh,
So,
100%. I
so
still
good
have a lot of
job.
connection in Miami. Yeah, I
Yeah,
still have connection with people in Univision in Miami. All of them, I still have a great relationship with them.
that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So I want to talk a little bit about the term the glass ceiling. Like we hear about that all the time in the media, right? Especially like when females run for political office and things like that, right? Like breaking the glass ceiling. So the term glass ceiling, it actually refers to discriminatory barriers that prevent women from getting in positions of power. And so, in your opinion, what are some strategies that that you would give other women who are looking to break the glass ceiling? Do you want to start us off, Amber?
Sure. I'm clearly still looking for the winning formula, but I will say the things that have helped me. I was actually just having a conversation with one of my mentors a week or two ago about how it doesn't always feel like a glass ceiling. Sometimes it feels like a glass room. So you're trying to get out the door and there's a that storm door is there or the window's stuck. But I think the things that have really helped me advance as I have and hopefully continue to help is creating a good network. Obviously men have to be a part of it, but especially strong, successful women who have gone through what you've gone through, who have fought, who have worked hard to get to where they are. And then another thing, which this is kind of, I guess, both a plus and can kind of hold you back, but I think is more important, the plus side is being a Swiss Army knife, being able to do everything, even if you don't do it, know how to do it, what it takes, so that say, oh, well, that's not possible, or it'll take X amount of money or this much time, when you can be like, for a fact, it'll take this or that, or being able to step in a pinch when they need it. You know, there have been times when I've been able to step in to produce graphics live on air, even though my background is as a post-production editor, or, feature producer, things like that. So just learning more skills so that nobody, unfortunately, women have to, and especially women of color, have to be extra qualified. Like, these are the minimum, we need to be here because people are going to question you no matter what. And being able to have, like, give them no, like, absolutely none to say no, then they have to come up with something, and something that will stand. So I think just being incredibly capable, knowing your stuff. I'm also an athlete, so I want to be the best at everything. But then also having that network of people who have gone through it, been through it, seen it, done it, and know what it takes and know what you've overcome.
What about you, Monique?
I agree with what Amber said, and to her point about the network is finding who your allies are that are above the ceiling. To help you get there, because you're going to need somebody on that side to fight for you, to help bring you up, and thankfully there have been people throughout history who have been willing to take that risk and help get people to the next level. But I think definitely finding an ally, and then working on your self-confidence has to be a part of that, because you got to be able to sell yourself, you know what I mean, and your abilities to that person, because you're more than likely going up against a man. And it's not that you want to be like, well, he can't do it. It's like, listen, I know I can do it, and I know I can do it better, and here's why. And so it's that level of confidence that will help sell it, where they're kind of like, maybe I really should give this person this opportunity because she's kind of selling me on this. You know what I mean? And again, I agree with Amber about being a jack of all trades. Sometimes you got to know how to do more than one thing. And that's even something that I need to work more on myself, is learning, because there are things that I know I'm going to need, but I've been building my network of other people that have those skills so I can reach out to them. But sometimes they're not accessible, and I'm like, okay, now I got to figure this out myself. And be willing to do that, and be honest about, hey, I'm gonna let you know I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm gonna make this happen. It's like, somehow we're gonna make this happen. I think that also kind of helps sell your ability to other people, is you're just like, listen, at least I'm willing to try, because y'all are all looking at me, So you didn't even try, but I'm gonna try and get us somewhere further than where we are. So I agree a lot with what Amber was saying, but also find that ally that can help you.
Wait, and I'm going to have a follow-up question just for you in a moment, but I want to hear a little bit from YAYA. YAYA, you just helped elect a female leader, the mayor of Jacksonville, right?
The first female mayor of Jacksonville.
That's awesome. So, yeah, there's some evidence of someone who broke the glass ceiling. What type of advice?
That was huge.
Yeah, what type of advice do you have for other women who are looking to also break the glass ceiling?
I think I'm kind of backing up what everyone's saying is networking is something that Full Sail harped in all of us, and every single course was networking. The reason why the reason why YAYA production is as successful as it is because my first sponsor was PGA Tour, and that was thanks to a Mexican friend who actually we just met in 2017 at that time. She was Mexican. We have both big personalities, so we clicked automatically. I just moved to Jacksonville. I knew that I wanted to put on a Hispanic festival. I didn't still have my company at that time. I think I was just forming it. And I did, without no questions, without asking anything, introduced me to PGA and kind of just opened the doors for me there. And I was nervous because we all know PGA Tour is not a small brand. It's a huge brand, and their headquarters is here in Jacksonville in Ponte Vedra. So it was definitely like a blessing for me to have that help where she opened that door for me. And through networking is how I've been able to have all these other clients and get the reputation that my company has here in Jacksonville. And sometimes what you said, sometimes I don't believe it. Sometimes I sit on these boards and I'm like, how am I sitting on this table right now? Yeah, like literally sitting next to Miller Electric, sitting to Mayo Clinic, sitting to Florida Blue, and little YAYA production is in the middle. So sometimes I'm like, how did I get here? And literally it's through networking. I was not afraid to go to these networking events that necessarily didn't have to do with me. I have nothing to do with Jack's Ports. I'm not in the logistic world. I'm not in the trucking world. But if there was a free networking event, I was there. I was there because there was probably a company that would want a Hispanic event and didn't, know how to do that. So I think you have to not be afraid to go to those events, knock on those doors that you probably are afraid to knock on. Send that email that, an email is so easy to send now. LinkedIn is amazing to quickly find out who the marketing director is, who the person is you want to find. Send them an email. I think that's what breaking the glass is going out the comfort zone and putting yourself out there. It's a vulnerable thing. Putting yourself out there in your company self, it's a vulnerable thing. And to what Amber said, I tend to have this Sofia Vergara personality, and people tend to think that I'm not as smart as I am. And no, I don't use big words. My biggest word is exciting. I say exciting for everything. But I get the job done. You know what I mean? So keep thinking I have this Sofia Vergara personality, because I'm going to keep climbing just how I do. And I love it. I love to be able to see the growth of my company in the last 5 years. It's just amazing. And I really do credit it to networking and just putting myself out there. Even when I was in Full Sail, I wasn't in the gaming department, but when there was a CEO from some gaming company, I would go because they probably have a music department there. They probably have some kind of sound engineer department that they needed, or they probably know somebody that they could connect me to. So I was not afraid to introduce myself. I've never been afraid to put myself out there. And I think that's what breaking the glass ceiling is getting out of your comfort zone.
I love it. I love the spin on that. And you know how much we encourage our students to network here at Full Sail. So that ties in so well to to our culture and what we promote.
And can I just about the networking, because I talk about the need to network, but what is beyond the networking is building the relationship.
Building relationships.
Because I didn't know Amber until today. Technically, the connection is the networking. But now I need to build a relationship with Amber for that to really do something for me.
Absolutely.
So I want to, for those of you that are watching and we see the questions coming in, to Yaya's point, she's 100% correct. Get out of your comfort zone, get to those events, but you got to build the relationship. So you got to communicate with those people, reach out to those people, continue the communication, not like, oh, I have your business card, so that means you can hook me up. That's not how it works.
Right.
That is not how it works. So build
genuine and build genuine relationships, because people can tell when you're just reaching out to them or being nice to them because you need something.
Exactly.
Like, I can tell it, people can tell it, and it's not going to work out. And I'm not saying you have to be best friends with these people. You don't, but just genuinely get to know them and just let them know that you have their best interests at heart. That, you do want to get something, obviously, but that's not necessarily the main focus. Like,
it's like, what can you do? Yeah. You have to almost approach it from what can I do for you? When you
mutually beneficial.
Exactly. It has to go both ways. So I'm going to hit each of you guys up with an individual question here. I'm going to start with you, Monique, because this ties into what you were just saying. So mentorship relationships tend to be the biggest catalyst for change for all types of people, men and women, right? When you have a strong mentor, I know I wouldn't be in the position I'm in today if I didn't have an outstanding mentor. So Pat Bishop was my mentor. She retired. I'm now in her role, but I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her advocating for me and being a good example and a role model, right? So is there any one person in your life, Monique, that has been kind of that person that has been your mentor, that you've looked up to, that you've been able to lean on?
So yes, and my mentor came later in my life, and with no disrespect to my mom or anybody else that's been in my life, they've definitely inspired me and instilled different things in me. But my mentor was Al Schlesinger. So my mentor was a man, a very much older gentleman, didn't even live here. Al, for those that don't know, was a very successul music attorney. He has since passed away. May he rest in peace.
Wonderful man.
Amazing human being. Al was my mentor, and I never really shared with a lot of people how much time Al poured into me. So sorry, my voice is cracking. So Al Schlesinger was my mentor, and that meant everything to me. So he really gave me confidence that I didn't have in myself for what I was trying to do. So that meant everything to me. And he gave me little tricks and little tips, and just, it took me a while to still find my confidence, but I listened to what he said. And I think if he saw me today and what I was doing right now, he'd be very proud. So my mentor was Al Schlesinger, and I would love to mentor somebody, but I'm not going to lie. I'm tough love. I'm tough love because a lot of the people that come to me and oh, will you mentor me? I can tell a lot of times that you're saying the word mentor, but what you're really asking me to do is give you my connections and give you my resource. You're not trying to work for anything, and that's not how I work. I worked very hard for everything that I have. There are people out there who had I didn't come from a poor family or anything like that, but when I finally, to Yanira's point, I got out of my comfort zone and I had to start from the bottom and work my way up on my own in Orlando, where I knew one person. So if you're serious about me mentoring you, you better be ready. You better buckle up, because I'm going to be tough on you, in a loving way, though. You know what I mean? But I'm not going to just give you. And Al didn't give me anything either. Well, he gave me something, but he didn't just put me in those places. Sure. I guess is a better way to put it. So Al Schlesinger was my mentor, and I love him every day for that. Yeah.
I had the honor of knowing him and his wife Paula too, and just amazing. I can't even put into words how wonderful human beings. They're just
two of
so
the
wonderful,
most perfect people that found each other.
Yes,
crazy.
So great, so great. So for you, Yaya, I have a question about entrepreneurship because you have started up your own company. And do you have any advice for female entrepreneurs who are, because they're very underrepresented, like, you know, they tend to struggle sometimes in that area. Do you have any advice from an entrepreneurial standpoint on what you would tell women?
Yeah, don't be afraid to start it. I mean, I was the promotions director of iHeartRadio when I started my company, YAYA Production. I didn't need to start my own company. I had a very good position with iHeartRadio, doing very well, doing exactly what I wanted to do in radio, my career job, but I still felt like I needed something on the side. And I started YAYA Productions. And then I still had my company, I still was working my regular job. And until I felt, and really COVID is kind of what pushed me because I had no choice. Because at that time, iHeart left everybody. But by that point, I already had enough clients that I could sustain myself with my company. And so I was like, okay, Yanira. And I was afraid. I mean, that's why I had iHeartRadio. That's why I didn't want to let go of my job, because I was like, no, Yanira, like it was like a safety blanket. So, but because I had that safety blanket, I wasn't investing as much as I needed in my own company, YAYA Production. I wasn't watering my garden enough. So when COVID happened, I had no choice but to attend my garden and do what I got to do in my company. And the thing I could tell people is, and it's something I've been harping ever since COVID, is this is the time to start what you want to do. And you don't have to start, don't expect it to be successful right away, people. I took me 5 years to get where I'm at right now in my life. But the first couple of years were hard. I was living literally paycheck to paycheck, sometimes had to borrow money from my mommy and daddy, in my 30s, a grown woman, but I didn't give up on my dream of having my successful company to where it was at. Another thing I would say is there's so many different services available out there for everybody. There's a small business, wherever you live, there's some kind of small business organization that you could go to. They could give you the guides and tools to start your own business. Get with people, get with your women's center. You can find women that are like-minded like yourself. Something that I highly suggest if you're going to start your own company, don't do what I did. I did not get an accountant. I waited. I thought I could do my own stuff. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. What I can tell you is invest in an accountant, even if it's a couple of dollars a month. It's an investment that's really well worth, because you don't want to mess with the IRS. And at the end of the day, when, like right now, I'm just being honest with you guys, like I didn't get a credit card till the first 3 years of my company. I kind of waited, and I should have applied for everything, because now I have to wait to build up more credit to go to this next chapter that I want to do in my life. So my suggestion is speak with the Small Business Bureau, get the information that you need, start slowly, go little by little. You don't have to rush. You don't have to do everything all at once. Start building it little by little. I've been 5 years. I've just now got my website. You know what I mean? Like, I haven't had a website this whole time until now. So there's time to do things. You don't expect things to go as successful as you want. And another thing, networking, people. The first year that I was here, that I moved back to Jacksonville, and my mom thought that I was making excuses to not be in the house, because, I moved back in with her when I moved to Jacksonville. But no, I was literally in every single networking event, meeting people, building those relationships to the point where I'm at now, to be able to say that we helped elect the first mayor of Jacksonville. I have the only Hispanic festival in Jacksonville, the first ever 2-day Hispanic festival in Jacksonville. So it's all of that because of the networking and people that I've met.
Cool. Good advice. Amber, real quick, I have one question for you before we get to the questions from our audience. So I know you've had many different opportunities to be promoted. I'm sure that salary negotiations have popped in there. Can you give any women out there some advice on how to navigate or advocate for themselves in those kind of often stressful situations where we tend to like want to sit back and cower down and not ask for what we deserve.
Yes, and it took me a couple jobs to realize that you actually could negotiate and do all that stuff. So that was a little tough. But what I tell my friends, what I tell classes when I speak to them, for women, channel your inner dude. They never question what they deserve or what they think they deserve or what they think they're worth. So don't be afraid to ask for what you want. The worst thing they can do is say no. And if they do, then they don't value you the way they should. Also, if they say no, you can find other things like, okay, maybe they won't give you that $5,000 you want in salary. Ask for another 2 weeks of vacation. Work with them to really get kind of some trade-offs, or, whether it's, setting a schedule during certain months so that you can coach, so that you can go to your kids' games, so that you can take a nap. There are other things that you can work in if it's a position you really, really want. But one thing, every single negotiating seminar that I've gone to, they always talk about how women don't ask, men do. Channel your inner guy. Just be that guy, go out there. And like I said, the worst thing they can do is no. The worst thing they can do is say no. And if it's a position they've offered you, it's not like they're going to be like, oh no, I'm sorry.
Right.
So,
awesome.
Ask for it.
So channel your inner dude. I like it. I like it. Cool. So we have a question from our audience here. What steps should be taken to create more inclusive and diverse workplaces? Anybody want to take that question? You have any advice?
I think those are tough conversations to have. Just how I was just talking about this privately with you guys. I was on a committee meeting yesterday for Visit Jacksonville, where somebody in the group called out the fact that the website does not represent the diversity of Jacksonville. It's very white. And so that was a conversation that it's hard to have, but you need to bring it up. And so I think there's ways to have those conversations. You could speak to your executive director privately, speak to your boss privately, bring your concerns and let them know, hey, I'm starting to see, we're looking some type of way. We're missing the diversity. How about if we start looking at hiring other people? I think it's a conversation that is tough to have, but it's much needed.
Awesome.
I was on the DE&I Council for NBC Sports when they first established it, and then I've gotten 2 certifications, one from Northwestern and one from University of South Florida for DE&I in the workplace. And at my current company, we've really been working harder on having a more reflective staffing for all of our papers of the people that they're, in their market. And then also just how we're telling stories. And so I just went to our senior vice president once and had a conversation with him about, even things as small as like the welcome packet for new employees, because we have a lot of papers in Omaha, in Madison, in Wyoming that may not initially look, as diverse as they actually are. And I'm like, yeah, you can put in like where to get your haircut at an ethnic place, or what kind of organizations are in the area for Hispanic and Latinos, for Black people, for Asian American, things like that. And that shows not just, that people belong here, but that the company is thinking about it. So it can be as small as that. And it can be, I'm working on trying to get, employee resource groups and things like that together, but also just having conversations with your coworkers, calling them out if they say something that isn't inclusive or makes people feel like they don't belong. There's a lot of different things that can be small that will end up building into a better culture.
Or if you're in a position where you're a hiring manager, being deliberate about hiring different people of different backgrounds and cultures and genders and all that. So another question from our audience, excuse me. Are there any organizations that you would recommend or have joined that have helped you on your career journey? I know, YAYA, you've talked a lot about networking and things like that, but is there any type of associations you could recommend, or clubs? Or
I think it depends on what you have to find what's interested in you. Here in Jacksonville, there's a film community. So if you're into film, I would join LOL Film Festival and that whole networking world. If you're into architect, there's an architect association. I'm in the Hispanic world, so I'm in the First Coast Hispanic Chambers. I'm also involved with Jacksonville Chambers. So I think you have to find the right organization that goes with your brand and what you want to do, and just join it.
That's really good advice. And I'm just so we have time for one last question. This is the last one we can fit in for today. What do you think are the next steps in your industry that will help women thrive in their positions? And anybody want to take that one first?
I think for the music industry, if we want to get more women involved on the technical end, we need to start at a younger age. Get them while they're young. When they're in science and they're in music class or whatever, let them see the representation at an earlier age and often. I think that's a part of the problem, is that we may see representation, but we see it so quickly and briefly, we're not seeing it consistently. So I think that will be, that's just my opinion. I think that's something that would definitely, move it along, for lack of a better term.
Anybody else want to comment on that? Amber or YAYA?
Very similar with journalism. When I was an intern, it seemed like all the females were in artsy or marketing or communications, and the guys were on the business side. So seeing more younger women, young girls, involved on the side of things, and also hire. ESPNW's Just Women's Sports is wonderful. I love those, but hire women and the women's perspective, but to do the job. To be a sports writer, to be a writer, but not necessarily from the women's perspective, because female identifying people are going to give that perspective no matter what. But that shouldn't be something completely separate from the work.
Really
Yeah,
great.
just go ahead and apply for those jobs, people. And if that position isn't open, then make yourself known. It's like what Amber said. You got to be able to do more than what you can, right? Like, I am not just an event planner. I could edit videos. I could write commercials. I could do a lot of things. So, let them see that you're multi-talented. And so when that position is available, they automatically know, hey, this is the person we need to call. I think you need to always let yourself shine. I think sometimes a lot of us tend to put ourselves in a box to not make ourselves be seen. Like, I'm not afraid. I'm gonna let you know that I'm talented and I can do all of the above, and I can probably do it better than you. So it's about having that confidence, about having that swag. Yeah, I could do this and I could do it. Even if you probably are like, oh my God, what am I doing? Fake it till you make it. And a lot of men fake it till they make it. So
yes,
absolutely. I love it. So on that note, that's a great way to end our segment. So on that note, if our current students want to get in touch with you ladies, what's the best way for them to contact you?
LinkedIn, Twitter. I'm in for the long run on Twitter. But yeah, that and LinkedIn are price.
You can find me on Instagram as YAYA Love Jax, YAYA Love Jax on Instagram. Or you can write me an email at yayaproductions.org. You can send me an email though, or just send me on Instagram, on Facebook, and LinkedIn as well. LinkedIn, you can find me on Yanira Cardona.
Awesome. Thank you. How about you, Monique?
You can find me at my Facebook. Just find me on Facebook, or I'm also on Instagram under Mosez, MOSEZ_more. Or you can email me here at Full Sail, Monica M at fullsail.com.
Well, I want to thank you ladies so much for sharing such meaningful advice and such personal stories. I really enjoyed today. It was awesome. And I want to thank our audience for tuning in today for Taking Flight. So hope to see you guys next month. Have a great day.
Thanks.